Welcome to Spiritual Insurgency. I'm Jason Lupo, sitting here with my co-host today, Aaron Lujan.
Hi, everybody.
And the one, the only, just a guy, Jim Miller.
Hello, hello.
And today we're talking about the One Big Beautiful Bill. This coming from an article posted on whitehouse.gov. ICYMI, President Trump's largest tax cut in history. Last night, President Donald J. Trump renewed his call for Congress to pass the One Big Beautiful Bill and once again delivered the largest tax cut in history to the American people. Rapid Response 47 Twitter page says in the coming weeks and months, we will pass the largest tax cuts in American history, and that will include no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, and no tax on overtime. It's called the One Big Beautiful Bill. Let's roll this clip from Donald Trump.
In the coming weeks and months, we will pass the largest tax cuts in American history, and that will include no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime. It's called the One Big Beautiful Bill, and it will be the biggest bill ever passed in our country's history. It will include the biggest tax cuts, regulation cuts, military supremacy, and just about everything else. We will cut more than $1 trillion in wasteful and unnecessary spending. And in the next fiscal year, it'll all be done. We're going to have something that you won't even believe. We will end inflation, slash prices. We've already ended inflation, raise wages, and give you the greatest economy in the history of the world. That's already happening. With our tax bill, the average family's take-home pay will be at least $5,000 more than it was just a couple of months ago.
The article goes on to say, in addition to finally exempting tips, overtime, and senior Social Security from taxes, here's what else that means. Real wages will go up by as much as $3,300 a year. Take-home pay from median income households will increase by as much as $5,000 a year. Short-run real GDP will be boosted by 3.3 to 3.8%, and long-run real GDP by 2.6 to 3.2%. 4.1 million jobs will be saved, it claims. If we look at the definitions here, as I think is important, real wages is defined by the purchasing power of income earned by workers adjusted for inflation. And the definition of take-home pay refers to the actual amount of money an employee receives after all deductions, including taxes and other withholdings, have been subtracted from their gross income. Aaron, what are your thoughts?
There's a world of difference between take-home pay and actual pay. I learned that really quickly in high school. Like, what in the Hades is this Medicaid and this Medicare and this Social Securities? I think that Proverbs 22:7, that the borrower is a slave to the lender, needs to guide this policy. Where is this money? Well, these are tax cuts, right? So this is really, I think, in the best interest of the American people, obviously. I mean, if we can, especially those in what I would call the working poor, your waiters, your servers, people that are in those types of jobs are the most impacted negatively or positively with tax increases and tax cuts. So, yeah, I think that this is good. For the everyday American worker. I think that there's a lot to look at, though. I mean, I equate Donald Trump to the Donald Trump show. It's just like this touring comedy tour. I think that there's a lot of showmanship on the surface, but I think the devil's in the details. I think we really need to look at exactly the bigger picture. But on the surface, yeah, tax cuts sound great.
Well, and when we look at what happens if we don't extend the Trump tax cuts from 2017, we look at 6 million jobs potentially being lost. Average taxpayer would see a 22% tax hike if the Trump tax cuts expire. A family of four making $80,000, the median income in the United States, would see a $1,695 tax increase if the Trump's tax cuts expire. Extending the Trump tax cuts, permanent extension of the 2017 Trump tax cuts, will fuel significant economic growth and prosperity. 1 million new jobs created by small businesses if the 20% small business deduction is made permanent. $150 billion in economic growth from permanent extension of the 20% small business deduction. $284 billion of new economic growth from American manufacturers. $50 billion in new investment in opportunity zones. which represent the poorest neighborhoods and communities in the country. And so we are seeing that we are running out of time for this bill to pass. That article coming from the Ways and Means Committee from the House on the official government website. What we saw during the first Trump administration was a return to American manufacturing. Although it was a small start, I think we see a increase in that as these tax cuts make it more profitable and more affordable to move back manufacturing in the United States. I mean, at the present time, I think there's plenty of companies that would love to return their business and their manufacturing to the United States, but it became so unfeasible for so many different reasons to keep it in the United States that they had to move it overseas. And so as we see tax cuts and incentives to move manufacturing back to the United States, I think we see that the American public benefits greatly.
Jim Miller, you have the floor, sir.
Oh, I got the floor. Yeah, it's always boggled my mind with that whole aspect of if you go to a whole nother country across whatever, the Atlantic, the Pacific, it doesn't matter. It's more affordable.
The Gulf of
To
America.
build everything. Yeah, the Gulf of America. You go across the Gulf of America, and it's more affordable to build and put something together than ship it all the way back here than to just make it right in your backyard. That's always boggled my mind. With your bill part, though, I mean, it sounds good. It does. It's all in the, just proposal stages, it sounds like. Nothing's put into concrete or, paved the way of it. It's just, what are we thinking of doing? What are we going to do? No taxes on Social Security. I'm fine with that. No taxes on tips. I mean, that's always good. If someone's tipping somebody for a job and they're not being taxed on it, it kind of makes a worker want to do a better job too, because it doesn't really, that whole meritocracy aspect of doing your work and your labor, and then, the prospect of even getting a tip, and that's yours to keep. That was always what a tip was. It was out of my pocket. You went out above and beyond. You made it better. I was happy. Here's a little extra just to put in your pocket so, you have fuel money for today because you went to work, and we're all overworked and overtaxed. So I don't really have a lot of issues or problems with any of this. It's all kind of speculative right now and still being proposed, but it sounds good. And Social Security's basically just tax money anyways. That being taxed again, we don't need that.
There's a part of this that I want to bring up. I'm looking at this tax cut, and critics are saying this could increase the national debt by 2 to 3 trillion over a decade. Here's how. Number one, there's going to be revenue lost without spending cuts. So corporate tax rates were slashed from 21% to 15%, which equates to a $1.2 trillion loss. The individual tax cuts that were extended is an $800 billion loss with no major spending reduction, so the deficit balloons. So in light of Proverbs 21:20 that says the wise store up choice food and oil, but fools gulp theirs down. Jason, do you see these arguments as valid, legitimate criticisms that this loss of revenue is going to create more of a problem than help us?
I mean, sure. Like, at the end of the day, there is, for the first time in modern history, a serious conversation taking place about the federal debt. And the problem is that we have so much in interest going towards this federal debt that it almost looks like it's unovercomable unless there's a massive shrinkage of the government, which we are all for.
Yeah.
Which, the three of us have talked about endlessly over the last 2 years. The House Speaker, Mike Johnson, has promised to seek at least $1.5 trillion in spending cuts over the course of 10 years along with this bill, and that the House would not pass this bill without the $1.5 trillion in cuts. Most of that looks like it's probably coming from Medicaid, which for a long time has needed to be talked about and needed to be restructured. But does hurting the average everyday American family by increasing taxes to take care of the needless spending that's taking place at the federal and state levels of our government, that's not the solution. Like the tax cuts that we are seeing will benefit the American public in the short run. Now, does it create a potential for a fiscal disaster in the long run? I mean, we're looking at, I think I saw the number was $60 trillion is what we're looking at over the next 30 years.
Yeah.
If we don't do anything. So it's definitely a problem. I remember back, 20, 30 years ago when we were like shocked that the federal budget or the federal deficit was going to go to like $7 trillion. And that's how much our national debt was going to be $7 trillion. And now we look at it and it's like we don't even blink an eye. We're like, oh yeah, national debt's going up. Who cares?
We can cut some government spending by everyone who's elected positions not making more than the median income. That'd cut quite a bit, wouldn't it?
But the problem is
I just
that
said it's a part of it. I didn't say
Yeah.
it was the full solution. I mean, some of these people make careers out of this, making bank, and then they got like a bunch of exorbitant security and stuff, and that's why they go around saying stupid crap and, oh, do this, do that, and get all extra. But if you get extra, you get in trouble. But they have security and a bunch of stuff that's paid for. They're making exorbitant amount of monies for as little work as they do too. I don't think any of these elected officials should make anything more than the median income. So there's a partial cut. There's a spoke on the wheel that we could cover.
Well, the last week we talked about the fact that the economy is a wheel that involves lots of different spokes.
Oh yeah.
And we're talking about a couple spokes here, but we're not talking about the greater picture in terms of the entire wheel. But in order to get the wheel true, we have to adjust some of those spokes, and this is one of those adjustments. I mean, we are staring down the pipeline of a imminent recession, and a boost of 3.3% of GDP and bringing back American manufacturing definitely would delay that recession. Now, I'm not necessarily against a recession because I think that there's probably some market corrections that need to take place. There's a whole lot of different aspects of the economy right now that is not being talked about. But you look at Doge and what the Department of Government Efficiency is trying to do and the amount of backlash from everybody on all sides of the aisle on Doge and what they're doing. I mean, this is an opportunity to finally make an impact in government spending, and it's being resisted at every step. And so if you want your cake and you want to be able to eat it too, we have to allow the spending cuts to take place. We have to stop spending money
Yes.
that's nonsensical.
Yeah, it's not essential, and it's just a freaking waste.
Because if we're not cutting spending and we're cutting revenue, we're increasing our debt obligations in the form of interest payments, and we're going to worsen the economy rather than help it. It's a mathematical question. You can't
have more outs than ins. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is an In-N-Out burger.
Right.
Like you can't cut all this revenue, continue to spend like a drunk sailor on Friday night, and then expect the economy to get better. You have to have spending cuts in hand with tax cuts.
That's why, like he's saying though, the Doge thing, it's a good concept and a great idea, and there's some fallacies and some problems with it. There's going to be with anything that's a good idea, especially something it's not a very revolutionary idea to not waste money and time and efficiency and all this stuff, to be efficient and not waste all the funding and stuff. But it's just weird and seems like there's just so much backlash on it, like he's saying, that it's strange to me. I don't know about you, because they're looking for it.
Yeah.
They're looking for getting rid of the waste.
Yeah, it's all very theatrical, but I think the devil's in the details. If you look at the numbers, the debt service costs is going to snowball the interest that we owe. Every $1 trillion in new debt is equivalent to 30 to 50 billion a year in interest payments. So the projected impact of this tax cut could add $2.5 trillion in debt. The Federal Reserve and our adversaries overseas. That's 75 to 125 billion a year in new interest obligations. So what we're essentially proposing with these tax cuts is more cost in servicing this debt. And in Proverbs 22:7, the rich rule over the poor and the borrower is a slave to the lender. And one last thing I want to address is this fallacy of economic growth, that if we cut the corporate tax rates, that somehow this will pay for the tax cuts. The growth will pay for the tax cuts. But in reality, in 2017, those tax cuts actually, corporate tax revenues fell 31% while deficits soared. So even with growth, it could take 6% plus in annual GDP gains to offset these losses. So it's being argued that it's mathematically impossible for growth to cover what these tax cuts are leaving remained.
It's not entirely impossible, and that was the entire idea behind Reagan economics. I mean, the idea that trickle-down economics is a feasible option, I do strongly believe that it is a feasible option. And when you cut the tax of the wealthy that goes on to make additional investments, number one, that's how we see the boom of technology and the boom of product development and research and development that's taking place in this country and been leading the front lines in technological advancements for generations. I mean, the last president to have a budget surplus was Bill Clinton. And if you recall, Bill Clinton and Al Gore walking by the forklifts of the tons of rules and regulations that they struck from the government in order to create that budget surplus, as well as the 400,000 jobs that were cut federally by the Clinton administration to get to that point. That's what it's going to take.
And fuel was like $1 a gallon then too. It was so awesome.
But the problem is that we live in this political circus where money is this imaginable thing, and it's only getting worse, right? Like, we have
Let's give
states
the government a credit score.
that have pretty much
Good idea. Zero.
Give them a credit rating.
it does.
Yeah, it's
The governments do have credit ratings.
Yeah.
But we're at this point where it was okay when Clinton did it, but Trump goes to do it, and just because it's Trump, we have outrage and panic. Like, we have a political circus where nobody actually cares about
the result,
the American
the
public.
actual outcome. They just
Sure.
somebody's that they don't like's doing something. I got you.
Sure, economics have been politicized, but numbers cannot be politicized. In 2017, Trump's tax cuts promised that the growth would pay for itself, and it didn't. Corporations used those savings for stock buybacks, not wages, and the debt rose faster than the GDP. So if companies are hoarding these profits, workers and taxpayers lose. So as much as I love,
But that's a singular way of looking at it from the perspective of just because corporations did it at that time.
but it happened just recently. So wouldn't
Sweet.
that be a fair warning to today?
No,
But wouldn't that happen again? Why wouldn't it not happen?
because
again?
because we have to get to a point where the political climate is not so fragile that corporations and humans and the American public are willing to go back and invest, because we're missing the confidence part. We're missing the part about the fact that for the first time in a long time, corporations saw a reduction in the ability for them to strengthen their own status and their own ability to function as a corporation for years in the future. Because unlike the government, who doesn't want to plan and doesn't want to budget, these corporations are.
You're having a conversation, Jason, about marketing versus finances. The marketing is the consumer confidence. I got tax cuts. I can go spend money. I can go to Best Buy now, right? So that's good psychologically. But if we're talking finances, if we're talking numbers, we have a case in point example in 2017 where they hoarded those funds, those tax cuts, to do stock buybacks, not to create jobs.
Confidence is not about marketing. Confidence is the fact that when you feel like the economic climate is on the rise and that your safety of your family because of finances is secure and your wealth is secure, you're more likely to invest and not hoard your cash resources.
My question was, is that based on
corporations are
reality or is that based on perception?
It is based on reality.
Okay.
And we've seen it time and time again.
And what you're saying is no matter what, there's going to be people do things that aren't favorable.
What I'm saying
regardless.
is, no matter what, the numbers don't lie. We're going to assume another 1.5 trillion in servicing the debt, which is going to put us in a situation where we're spending more than what we're making. So what are we going to do? We're going to print money, which is going to create more inflation. I think that the tax cuts are feel-good optics, and it's branding and marketing from the White House is what I think is happening.
I don't believe so. And I think that if you as a family, if my family who's undergoing a enormous amount of tapping into our financial resources to make it through an economic hard time, comes out the backside of that economic hard time, the first thing I'm doing is restoring my reserves, is filling up my savings account before I go out and spend. And that's what we saw with the corporations when they received those tax cuts, is they're going back to basically fix the problem that the economic shortfall had created. Because you got to remember, we're still recovering at that time from 2008 and 2010 and the financial crisis that we had in 2008 and 2010. Corporations did not recover from that in 2 or 3 years. Like when we have that type of economic disaster that we saw, it takes a decade to get over the top of that and to get over that hump. So if the corporate tax rates are consistent in terms of them going down and there's confidence that they will not go back up, the investment from the corporations after they've stockpiled the amount of resources that they need to be secure in their organization, they will go and try to expand.
So your argument is that in the short term, the stock buybacks or for the long-term gain that we can assume will be new job creation, new capital investment, which will ultimately help the economy. Is that what you're arguing?
Correct. I think that there's expansion and construction of businesses globally all the time.
So we're being unfair to corporations when they engage in stock buybacks with the tax cut savings, because we just need to be patient that they're ultimately going to create jobs and capital investments.
Correct.
Okay, that's a fair. I think that I'll buy that. Yeah, so I guess I stand correct.
I think if you're looking at it right from a perspective of 2017 tax cuts, they have 2 years of security in what they know is going to happen with the economy under the Trump administration. 2 years later, like actually probably about a year and a half later, we have the COVID crisis, which, by the way, corporations still recovering from the COVID crisis. I don't think that you can look at what happens from the perspective of a tax cut over the course of 2 years or a year and a half of a stable economy and make a assumption about what a more permanent tax cut for corporations will do over decades or generations.
Yeah, it was looking pretty good before COVID, huh?
And we have to talk about it, right? Clinton cut 400,000 federal jobs. That's 400,000 people that now need jobs.
Bye, Felicia.
So if we start cutting federal jobs, we have to rely on the private sector
having their being
to create those jobs. Yeah. And so you cannot
cut money better and more in a profitable or equitable sense. The private sector spends money more of that to make money versus the government. It just tends to waste it. The system just burns it going, whatever, there'll be more.
But Jason, here's what I would push back. Don't you think that these tax cuts should have been accompanied with a reduction of the federal deficit and government spending simultaneously, sort of as an economic rescue package? Because it's giving me marketing and optics vibes when it's the White House saying the biggest, most beautiful tax cuts in history.
But you have to look at the bigger picture. We come off the Obama administration, who has arguably one of the worst economies that we've seen in modern American history, and has seen some of the largest deficits in American history. And now you have a Trump administration that's quickly trying to recover from an 8 years of disaster. And you have the 2017 tax cuts. Fast forward, we've now been through a Biden administration who's seen the largest inflation we've ever seen in modern American history. And now we have the Trump administration trying to quickly correct course. Now, they've promised that it's going to come with tax cuts. What those look like, we don't know, because the bill has not even made it onto the House floor. We have not seen a final bill. But the speaker, who at this point has given us very little reason to say, I don't think that he's going to do this, has promised 1.5 trillion and has said we are going to have 1.5 trillion in spending cuts in this bill, or it's not going to get passed. I do believe Mike Johnson is going to do that. I believe that there's no way this bill is going to get passed without the 1.5 trillion in spending cuts cost.
So be patient.
Yes, let them finish writing it up.
Let them write it up.
Do what you're talking about.
So why all these big announcements? Because it's going to be the president's bringing it to the House floor, and then the expectation.
Preview for a movie.
We look at them as big announcements because this is an administration who has this administration back in the first term and the second term has been in front of the American people more than any other president in American history.
Which would be like more
Biden
transparency and letting you know
Correct.
what the ideas are, what's cooking in the stove, in the oven.
Biden hid for 4 years. Biden was not in front of the
Trick
camera.
up some stairs. Give the guy a little bit of credit.
He pooped a diaper in France.
Trump is not just relying on his press secretary to be the only source of information coming from the White House. Trump is doing it himself, and he's doing it in a very public manner. And so we have transparency. We have the president going out in front of the American people, telling them what the plan is, where we've never seen that before from any other president, and it's catching news. I think that's why it looks that way.
I appreciate that you're selling me on how Trump handled it. I'm more interested because I don't hate Trump or love Trump. I'm interested in the numbers, and I'm interested in the mathematics. And so I'm going to tell the waiter, bring me back the menu when it's complete. I don't know what we're getting. We're getting artichoke. We're getting mashed potatoes. Like, give me the final menu before I make a decision. So I think this is yet to be determined. This is a half-baked conversation because this bill apparently is going to go onto the floor for triage and is going to be turned into like a tranny. Like they're just going to do like post-op. Like they're going to change the bill.
Not all the ingredients are there.
I don't have a problem with the unfinished bill conversation, and the reason why is because when we wait for the bill to hit the floor without the public input and without the public knowledge and the public's ability to influence the bill, we're going to get a really bad bill. But when Trump puts it in front of the American public and you have public pressure on that bill and the public is saying there better be 1.5 trillion in tax cuts like you promised us in this bill, as you're writing the bill, you're going to be a lot more likely to include those 1.5 trillion. I think that the idea that we shouldn't care about something that's being written until it's written and on the House floor is waiting too long. I have no problem with...
Then there's no input on what's being written or no consequence if they rewrite it goofy. Okay, yeah, I get you. It's kind of letting you know some of the ingredients before they start baking stuff.
No, it's an interesting conversation because I think
it's all propositions and stuff right now, which is good.
In fairness to Jason, I think he's approaching this, that Trump is making these announcements in good faith. And I think I'm approaching this with the bias that there's a Trojan horse, there's an agenda, there's something that the American people aren't being told. And that's good that we're hearing both of this because I hear Jason's point. We do have a media president, and he's he's leveraging public opinion and public pressure to do his negotiation. Call it art of the deal. Hats off to Trump. Cool. I'm going to be pessimistic Pam for a minute and say that he's bringing this out in a Trump-style fashion. It's big. It's beautiful. It's going to take it to the radical Democrats. But in reality, what's actually happening is he's hyping up the public that they're being helped when in reality this is going to boomerang and this is not doing anything with the root cause of the problem. And so until I see significant spending cuts, not 136, not 140th, you mentioned a $1.5 trillion cut. We're 36 trillion. We're running a $36 trillion deficit.
When was the last time we saw any president besides Clinton look to take $1.5 trillion out of government spending?
I'm not going to applaud Trump because he's better than the last guy or the last 20 guys. I'm going to applaud Trump when he fixes problems.
But he's trying to. And
I don't know if he's trying.
Let's put it this way. Trump probably could have gotten a lot more done had the Rhino's been on his side the first go around and he was able to pass half his agenda. But we don't live in a monarchy where Trump makes all the decisions, even though sometimes it appears like through the sheer amount of executive orders that are taking place.
Nobody's a leader, and he could propose real change.
It appears like Trump may be in that facet, like more of like a monarchy. But, however, he still requires the Senate and the House to be on his side to get this done.
Mm-hmm.
And so, whereas Trump probably and Elon Musk would probably be more than happy to cut $10 trillion out, they need their own party to back them. And what we've seen is many people from this party, from the Republican Party, are not backing Trump the way that they should, not backing the deficit that we have in this government and the spending cuts that need to take place.
A lot of politics
and so
in politics.
Trump is not the only one, but if they can get 1.5 trillion slashed, that's a huge step in the right direction. And I will never, as Wayne Gretzky famously said, you miss every shot you don't take. I will never, ever criticize anybody for taking a shot that is contrary to what we have seen for the last couple decades in this country.
I will take a shot if it's for public opinion points. When my wife asked me to landscape the backyard and I just plant a tree and say, babe, I finished the landscaping of the backyard, she's going to be like, no, honey, that's not acceptable. You just did a tree. You need to do the waterfalls. You need to complete the job. You know, so like this 1.5 trillion from a $36 trillion deficit.
Yeah, but it sounds like you don't even want to give credit when someone even goes in the right direction.
It's not that I don't want to give
out and out results and stuff, just going right straight to it, when really every long journey starts with one single step, does it not? It's arduous. It's irritating. It's annoying. You see some of these other politicians and stuff. I'll give the trumpeter the credit. I try, an E for effort, a making that step in the right direction. I don't care if it's saving me. It's like the utilities here, right? We got a bunch of access fees. It might be 2 or 3 cents per person that's back in your pocket, but that's your 2 or 3 cents. So if he's giving you back every 2 or 3 cents, 10 cents, $1, that's yours. That's in the right thing. He's trying to make it. It seems like he's trying to make it more the standard of not taking out of your pocket.
I understand where Aaron's coming from.
I see where he's coming from,
but I think that we're missing the picture that like this is not, number one, it's not all on Trump.
No.
Like this requires the support of
a
lot of, and really it does require some bipartisan support in a lot of places as well.
We have a great system.
And we also have, we have a terrible system. But you also have to remember, we only have a year and a half before the midterm elections.
Yeah, and that's when the change could
the likelihood of there no longer being a Republican House and a Republican Senate is highly unlikely, right? Like we've rarely seen that the midterms, that the party maintains control at the midterm elections. Mm-hmm. And with the amount that the media is bashing Trump and Trump's administration, the likelihood that we see a Republican stronghold in the federal government is probably not going to happen, which means they have a year to do something. Anything.
And start
they have 1 year. And so while I understand that maybe we're not happy that it's not a bigger cut,
we're barely being showed the ingredients right now.
We're seeing
That's why I think
something.
politics are gay.
Jesus. And with that, we're going to take a brief time out. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Spiritual Insurgency. I'm Jason Lupo with my co-host Aaron Lujan.
Cheers.
And just the one, the only, just a guy, Jim Miller.
Hello, hello.
Well, Esquire getting pretty pissed because, well, Dr. Phil and RFK Jr. sat down for a conversation. They claim RFK Jr. sat down with Dr. Phil for a conversation that was completely detached from reality. This is from the article, I quote from Charles Pierce. Secretary of Health and Human Services Robert F. Kennedy sat down for an interview with Dr. Phil in the most conspicuous public gathering of charlatans since the last time the president dined alone. By the way, Oprah, sorry, but you gotta atone for Dr. Phil. The substance of the conversation took place largely on a different plane of existence, but all you need to know is that Mr. Secretary actually used the magic phrase that has murdered science and rational argument in this century, from the New York Times. I would say that we live in a democracy, and part of the responsibility of being a parent is to do your own research, the health secretary said. in response to a question from a woman in the audience who asked how he would advise a new parent about vaccine safety. He actually said it: do your own research. You research the baby stroller, you research the foods that they're getting, and you need to research the medicines that they're taking as well. I'm sure Mr. Secretary had some interesting websites on which you can do your own research. Then you can learn how space aliens built Moses a nice house on the slopes of Mount Horeb, where he ran a B&B until the Philistines bought him out. Esquire going a little crazy. Another vaccine expert, Dr. Peter Hotz of Baylor College of Medicine in Houston, said Mr. Kennedy was being disingenuous. He says that doing your own research, knowing full well that when a parent does their own research, they're now mostly downloading an onslaught of disinformation. A lot of it from health and wellness, nutritional supplement influencer industry trying to peddle our alternatives. It's like
What?
this current administration and RFK Jr. has laid out for the American public how these vaccines have not even been tested, that they've been allowed to just go on the market and be pushed into your kids without ever going through any clinical trials. And they've proved it. The offices have proved that for years and years that they have not received the clinical testing that they were supposed to receive. And Dr. Fauci has admitted it as well, that they did not do any of the research that they would require of any other drug because it's labeled a vaccine. This is not new information. It's not disinformation. On every single vaccine warning, you see the same things. You see the fact that vaccines can cause brain swelling. And when we've seen the increased rise of autism in this country, and we've seen the fact that autism surely looks really similar to a traumatic brain injury, I have long been of the assumption that what we are truly looking at with the rise of autism is actually a rise of traumatic brain injuries, probably from brain swelling, probably from vaccines, and this will probably get me canceled, but screw it.
Amen. And amen. The Esquire is an extension of the pharmaceutical industry. They are a public relations marketing firm for Pfizer, for Bayer. That's how powerful these people are. I guarantee you the guy that wrote this article can't bench the bar, okay? The guy that wrote this article is paid and bought for.
Doesn't even know what leg day is.
Doesn't know what leg day is. He thinks it's when he's got to get up when they call his name at Starbucks to get his espresso macchiato
For the pharmaceutical companies.
So, yeah, I want to say, in addition to what Jason said, that you don't even need to study the numbers. You don't need to look at any of the research. You don't even need to look at any of the stats. What you need to just realize, prima facie, on its face, the pharmaceutical industry makes billions and billions of dollars getting their vaccines on the children's schedule. The pharmaceutical industry gets paid for keeping people sick because if people get healthy, they don't make money. It's a supply and demand observation. Sick people are very profitable for the pharmaceutical industry.
It's more profitable to treat than to cure.
Robert F. Kennedy is literally leading his arguments with do your own research. So the fact that the only criticism of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. are ad hominem attacks, that he's kooky and he's weird and he's a nanny poo-poo, should tell you everything that you need to know. That the people that are attacking Robert F. Kennedy and trying to demonize him and trying to get his message dismissed are people that don't have an argument, number one, and number two, are exposing themselves for who they are, which are just rabid attack dogs that have no argument because they never actually address the credence or the points that Robert F. Kennedy is making, like the points that Jason just made.
Well, and here's another one from NPR. NPR, the Oprah to Make America Healthy Again pipeline, talking about the fact that Oprah Winfrey got Dr. Phil and Dr. Oz pretty much started. Her recommendations have become bestsellers, sold out stores, and even launched the careers of two very well-known Make America Healthy Again constituents, Dr. Phil and Dr. Oz. I mean, like, the fact that NPR is able to, as a American taxpayer subsidized organization put out completely left-leaning material that's attacking the present administration and what RFK Jr. is trying to do. I mean, this is the same, like NPR and PBS. Like in 2024, NPR ran a Valentine's Day feature around queer animals, in which it suggested that make-believe clownfish in Finding Nemo would have been better off as female, that banana slugs are hermaphrodites, and that some deer are non-binary. In 2024, PBS produced a documentary making the case for reparations. In 2023, PBS's Washington Week Roundtable covered up Joe Biden's clear mental decline, with far-left journalist Jeff Goldberg claiming Biden is actually quite acute. In 2022, NPR educated the nation on the whole community of genderqueer dinosaur enthusiasts and Triceratops. In 2021, a PBS station aired a children's program that featured a drag queen named
Not a spending cut.
Little Miss Hot Mess.
That's hot.
In 2021, NPR reported on the cousin of diet culture known as healthism, which is the idea that we have to be healthy, as if it was that bad of a thing. In 2021, NPR suggested doorway sizes are based on latent fat phobia. In 2021,
We pay for this?
yes, in 2020,
Stupid. I just found a tax cut, a spending decrease for the government.
this
right
was part of their tax cuts and part of Doge. In 2021, NPR lamented that animals deserve pronouns too. In 2022, NPR ran a feature titled "What Queer Ducks Can Teach Teenagers About Sexuality in the Animal Kingdom." In 2020, PBS shows Sesame Street partnered with CNN for a town hall aimed presenting children with a one-sided narrative to address racism amid the Black Lives Matters riots. Do you want me to continue?
No, but all these liberal college students were told by their professors to listen to NPR because it is the most unbiased, most objective news source in the world. My name's Aaron Lujan, reporting for NPR.
I have to do one more.
Go ahead.
In 2017, NPR ran a story titled "Cannibalism, It's Perfectly Natural," in which an author describes eating another human's placenta. It was really the prep that made it taste good. Granted, the husband was a chef, so he knew how to prepare it ossobuco style and used a really nice wine I had bought. It smelled great. It didn't taste bad.
This planet's ghetto. I'm moving to Mars.
It's absolutely insane. And
We
like,
pay for all that. The NPR, the PBS, nonsensical crap. Aren't these things supposed to be like just publicly funded, where it's like showing kids and the public like, hey, math, reading skills.
What happened to Count
regular
Dracula?
Things. Here's the count. 1,
The
2,
The 5.
Yeah, what the? This is the letter C.
Is a 6.
Yeah. Here's the letter N, bringing you some more nonsense. You know what happened with all this? I don't know. Here's the letter C. Here's some more crap.
Is Elmo gay?
What the fun?
I heard Ernie and Bert were same-sex partners living in a fancy apartment in New York. Is that
I
true?
don't know, dude. I don't know what happened with all this stuff. If this is publicly funded stuff, it's very directional. It's just I thought all this publicly funded radio and TV is supposed to be like, here's math, here's reading, here's the Constitution, here's some U.S. history, here's some science.
That's right-wing
Here's
extremism.
some regular, just so people that can have limited access can just have another little way of learning and
but
knowledge.
amongst this latest sex ed summer camp that we talked about, when the expose was released and they were looking at what they were going to do in this camp, the people that were running this camp said and called,
How many of them were sex offenders?
probably all of them, they called the children humans, and they referred to parents as caregivers. And this story of this outrage on, oh my gosh, I can't believe that RFK Jr. would tell parents to do their own research, is just this like public leftist idea that parents should not be in charge of their kids, should not control what goes into their kids' body, should not raise their kids, that it's the government's job to raise their kids. And now we have public radio, PBS.
And then RFK is trying to reinforce your individuality, your sovereignty, your liberty, your freedoms to make your own decisions into the aspects of a republic, if you will. He's reinforcing your individualism to make your own decisions, to really exercise your actual freedom in this country. And they're ridiculing him for letting you make your own decisions for you, yours, your family, and your household. That's how they're ridiculing him? That's what?
Hashtag timeout. Spiritual insurgency listeners and viewers, we are in a spiritual battle. We are in a spiritual war, and the enemy wants our kids, period. And because that's the root of it, that's why we have transgenderism. That's why we have abortions. That's why we have a vaccine schedule longer than war and peace. We have a problem, guys, and the problem is that the devil wants our kids. Wake up.
I mean, 100%. Like,
Boy, that's like Governor Polis Sausage's thing. If you misgender your kid, it's child abuse or something. And you're like, what? I was there when they were born. I know what they are. What the hell's this guy talking about? I hate that guy.
this is a coordinated effort
I'm
to
hungry. I want
make
Polish
the,
sausage right now. Sorry.
No bun.
this is a coordinated effort to ensure that parents no longer have quote unquote custody of their children, that
It's a
they're simply
coordinated
caregivers.
Effort to make the next generation stupid and dumb and fall in line with all their garbage crap that makes no damn sense, empowers the system and all their weird authoritarianism, tyranny, garbage, trash thing going, oh, you don't need to be able to do anything as an adult. No, you need the government. You need this corrupted, polluted, crap establishment system of junk to be doing anything, to breathe, to walk, to eat. You don't need to do it. So they just get the next generation to feed into their trash because they don't know any better first. And they get excited because, let's not lie, every teenager, once they get through puberty or whatever, even before they start a rebellious sense, I got to fight against my parents a little bit, which is natural and fine. It's to test the limits and the boundaries of right and wrong and morals, values, ethics, sense of community, family, society, all this other type of things. And then the system and all this corrupt garbage is just feeding off it going, oh, look, we're all about your rebellion and your aspect. Here, come look at this trash we have to offer you. Eat it up, next generation, because you don't know any better.
This is leading into a part where eventually it's going to become illegal to raise your children up in the Christian faith. Would you agree?
Of course, absolutely. I mean, well, this is going to a point where they want to take your kids away from you, and they want to have their way with them mentally, sexually, spiritually. This show, I think God put it on our hearts, is really to push back against this wave of evil that has manifested now to a point where they're not hiding anymore. They're not wearing a mask. They're not making excuses. Right. They're not asking for permission. They're passing bills saying, if your children give in to this demonic influence that they are another gender and you don't give into that, you lose parental rights over your child. And this is not a science fiction film. This is real life in Colorado 2025.
And you submit to it because they have you constantly under duress of losing your bloodline, your family, your immortality to it. So it's just a constant duress thing of some trash stuff. You know, now's not the time for any knee-bendy, limp-wristy stuff. And it seems like it's more and more the time to just fight.
They're trying to kill your kid in the womb before they're born. If they get out of the womb, then they're given all kinds of vaccines to damage their brain and make them autistic and have learning disabilities. And if they can get past the vaccine schedule, then they get submitted into the public school system where they're being taught all of this liberal, communist, Marxist, anti-Christ nonsense. And then if they can get through that, then they're going to be sexualized through the back door of Disney Plus and Netflix and porn in the school systems. And if they can get past that, then they're going to be told that they need to have condoms and they need to start having sex and having kids out of wedlock and being a teen mom. And then if they can get past that, well, congratulations, you've graduated childhood.
Yeah, they don't even let the kids be kids anymore, man. It's ridiculous.
Make that a short, Jason.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you can catch all of our shorts at YouTube. We're posting them all the time.
Why did you gotta say it like short?
Yeah, I think that what we're seeing is this giant rebuke of parents across the nation, and it's very, very, very concerning to me. And we're seeing it happen, especially in Colorado, but all the liberal states pushing this agenda that, like, essentially parents have no room in a child's life, have no room to raise them up, which is in complete contradiction to what is biblical and what should be taught at the churches and is not being taught hardcore enough at the churches, which is raise your kids up in the way that they
I
should
kind
go.
of get the notion that they kind of feed off this. Anybody that's had to go to court for their kids and stuff, you're a dad, you get treated like trash. I kind of feel like they're just feeding off that and taking it even further to just be like, no, we're the parents now.
Well, and it's so easy to like change the culture in such a way that we see that parents who maybe started out with the same mindset in raising their children sees one parent go away from that and then creates this legal kerfuffle over who has control of the child because one parent does not want to raise their child as a transgender and the other one is pissed because every other parent in their yoga class, his kid is
I want
transgender.
my kid to fit in with the other weird kid.
Okay, let's not pretend Jason just said kerfuffle. Can you please define that?
I cannot. I mean,
That was wonderful.
I don't even know how you spell it, but let's
Okay,
see.
I'm just impressed. Ladies and gentlemen, we have kerfuffle. That's the word of the day.
Is that a quagmire? Or
So
is that
kerfuffle-
nonsense?
It's not
Or is it
malarkey, I'll
trash?
tell you that.
It's not malarkey.
So it is kerfuffle, the state of being disordered or ruffled, agitation, perturbation.
Percha what?
Perturbation.
Okay.
The kerfuffled states of America.
Yeah.
That's what it seems like.
I don't know. I think there's too much politics, too many politicians, too much filthiness. That's what I think with all this stuff. It's ridiculous.
Too much Epstein list.
Everybody's in your household with all your stuff.
Too much sexual blackmail.
They'll tell you what to do with like everything, but they don't like get rid of any of these damn pedophiles, rapists, or sex traffickers.
Not enough
I'm
Jesus.
sick of it. It's disgusting.
Holy Spirit, come.
Perturbation is the act of perturbing.
Wow,
Perturb-
that sounds
That's
very.
communist heritage.
That sounds very illicit.
Perturb is to disturb or confuse, make uneasy or anxious.
Oh, okay. I thought it was like a 2 a.m. Craigslist thing. I was like, this is kind of weird.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be like a cackling chameleon communist Harris definition. To travel, the definition is to traveling. We're like, what? I'd like to do 3 circles and watch where they overlap.
That sounded a lot like that sounded a lot like George Bush as well. You know, definition by definition.
There's a lot of conspiracy theories on the internets about 9/11.
Since conspiracy.
A lot of conspiracy theories
Yeah.
on the internets.
The interwebs.
Well, it surely has been a fun show. I mean, like the conversation that we had in regards to the potential tax cuts that are coming along the pipeline and the budget deficit and the spending of the federal government are all very, very, very needed conversations. And even though, we may not totally agree on how that takes place, I think at the end of the day, like,
I think we'll agree that NPR and PBS need to be cut out of there.
Yes.
I'm not tired of paying for that.
No disrespect to Oscar the Grouch, but
well,
gotta do something.
and I think we all agree. And
Oscar the Grouch was the realist. And the Cookie Monster, dude. I liked Cookie Monster.
No, I think he was on PCP.
I say this in all the classes that I teach, and I'll continue to say it. But in general, everybody would agree that they know how to spend their money and give their money better than the government can.
Yeah.
And what we have is we have generations of the church not wanting to take care of the social services of the community, mostly because the social services that God has called the church to take care of does not match those that the government is taking care of, like those that choose not to work. That is not biblical, that we provide them with money and resources. If you don't work, you don't eat. But the church has given that up and said the government can take it. Well, now we're pissed because the government is spending our money in a way that does not match what is biblical. But the church gave that up a long time ago because they failed to do their job, which was biblical. And so now we have Family Medical Leave Act and all this other crap that should never be put in place because that is the job and the role of the church and the community. And so I would rather have my taxpayer money back because I feel like I can spend it in a way that helps the community and helps the world and fulfills God's plan a whole lot better than the government ever will.
What do you say to the guys where OnlyFans is like 30% of their household budget? Do you think they're doing a good job at stewarding?
Not a dang chance.
Okay. I just thought I'd throw that in there because I think that there's a lot of men who spend a lot of money on frivolously.
Holy crap. That's a thing?
I guess. Well,
Yeah.
yes.
I don't subscribe, but
The
I,
interweb to order car parts, so.
yeah,
I'm like, what?
check my credit.
What
card
is
statement.
that? What a stupid world. Look, you want to see how crappy society is? Just go to a grocery store or the old Walmart or the clean Walmart at Target and look at what's locked up: detergent, socks, all this stupid crap. This is dumb.
Is People of Walmart still a website?
Is there a website?
No, the Creatures of Walmart. It actually used to be one of my favorite Twitter accounts.
Creatures.
It's like the
of
libs of
Walmart?
TikTok. It's epic.
But before that, there was People of Walmart, and it was just pictures.
Of
Back
people at
before we had
Walmart.
video of
Yeah.
people at Walmart at like 2 a.m.
Oh, no, it's great.
Like
Only Walmart's open 24 hours a day.
not anymore. Not since COVID.
No, the Cheyenne Mountain Zoo has some serious competition if you go to Walmart at 2 a.m.
For the creature.
All right. Well, anyways, this has been Spiritual Insurgency. Join us every day of the week at 3 p.m. and on the weekends at 9 a.m. or actually 10 a.m. Sorry, I messed that up.
All good.
Yeah, join us online, Rumble, YouTube, Spiritual Insurgency. Also find us on TikTok, Spiritual Insurgency, for some of our shorts. Thank you for joining us. Have a great day. God bless.
Peace.
Want it better, be better.